Next, we're going to make a special clamp which is going to have two long 2x2s attached to it. This clamp plus its supports is going to be used to hold up the walls, so one person can stand the walls vertical and screw them into the foundation. This is how you make it. We're going to put screws in from both sides on this clamp part. The clamp is made with a 2x2 in here, so it has a 1.5 inch space. And also what I did was I staggered the screws on each side. This keeps it from twisting. It's designed to slip on and hold your wall just like this. Take two of your worst 2x2s and cut a foot off the end of each one. Attach the clamp to the two long 2x2s you just made with 45-degree angles on them. This is just going to be a very temporary prop to hold up the walls. And you know, you'll have to put a couple screws in here, you'll have to fiddle around with this a little bit. You know, just make it decent and sturdy. It's only temporary. Here's the first wall being held up with the temporary brace. Set the walls on the foundation. Leave 3.5 inches on each side. The next wall will be placed right here, 3.5 inches in from the corner. Eventually there will be connecting blocks added. So go ahead and screw in the center of this wall. That way you can tilt it, get it perfectly set flush with the outside, then add the rest of your screws. I put screws right next to every upright on both sides. 9 screws in total. When you remove the brace, the wall can now stand on its own. If you're trying to put this up in wind, then leave the brace on and make another brace. Once you get 2 walls up and have them attached together, then you can proceed to build the rest. The structure will hold itself together really decent at that point. The second wall is up. When you attach the walls to the 2x6s, if you want, squirt a huge bead of silicone underneath this to keep water from seeping underneath. Or you could use butyl rubber tape like the kind they use on RVs. You know, you can get it in about 1 inch wide if you want. You could run a whole strip of that along the bottom, then stick the wall onto it, put your 8 or 9 screws in, and then you'll have a somewhat watertight seal in there that'll be long lasting. That way water can't seep underneath and ruin your wood. Next, we're going to attach the corner blocks in here. These are the connector blocks. They're 6.25 inches tip to tip with 30-degree angle cuts on them. Now you're going to make 4 of these at first to connect the first 2 walls, and these will be the test blocks. The corner blocks are going to be installed right here. You'll notice my 2x6 is a little bit warped here. I'm going to screw the block down, which is going to take some of that twist out. It's just because we have an extreme climate out here that's way too hot and the wood dries kind of funny. But anyway, if you've cut these the right length, the test block should fit in good at the bottom. You're going to need 4 more of these. Put a couple screws towards the front of the block, because you're going to put some screws in diagonally here, and you want them to miss the front ones and go into the meaty part of the wood. Also, you'll notice as you tighten this up, your 2x6s will shift a little bit. Sometimes a little gap will appear because it's aligning the pieces correctly. And if you want, you can take your screws back out. You can try again. If you're using pretty decent straight lumber, you won't have too much of a problem. You can also take your other blocks you cut, just kind of temporarily pop them in there. They should all be the exact same size. So that's not too bad. There's a gap over here because we're going to be straightening the wall as we go up. Once you attach this bottom block and get this secure, you're going to do the top block. And there's the finished corner. You'll notice the walls are pretty straight. And as long as you made your 4 corner blocks correctly, all to the same length, everything will go together good. You may notice some bowing now and again in the wood or whatever. You really can't help that with 2x2s, so just do your best. It should look like that when it's attached properly. Not too many gaps, pretty good. As you go down, you may notice some other gaps, but your glue that you put on here can take up some of that space, especially if you use hot glue. Or you can go around after the fact and go ahead and squirt a little bit in here. When we assemble this thing fully, we're going to go around with a sanding block, and we're going to hit all these little corners on here with a sanding block to make them smooth, so that if you coat this with plastic or whatever, you're not going to rip through the plastic. It shouldn't really rip as it is. My first prototype I built, I never had any problem with plastic wearing on any of the edges, so it's pretty decent. Also, when you assemble this whole thing, you could go ahead and mark across there and cut off the tips of the 2x6s. Or not, or you can just leave them like this. There are some other optional assemblies that I'm going to show later, which is why I left this on. I'll change the drawings and everything to reflect this distance when this whole thing's assembled. I'll mark out your cut on here, so in case optionally you want to take that off, you can. With the 2 walls assembled, you can now go on to attach the next 2 using your brace apparatus. And basically it's just built in 3 stages then, 2 sides at a time. 3 walls assembled. If you like the way your corner connectors fit, go ahead and cut a whole bunch of 6 1/4 connector blocks. Do all the 90-degree cuts first. Make sure they're all 6 1/2, line them all up, they all look good. Then set your saw for 30-degree angle and go ahead and cut the angles on all the ends. All your corner connector blocks are made from the leftover cuts from the walls, all the uprights. So you'll see by the time you're done, the only scrap will be a bunch of small blocks and some little 45-degree angle corners and stuff like that. Go ahead and do all your 30-degree angle cuts. And now the frame's finished. All 6 walls are on, and the 4 small connecting blocks per corner are in place. The frame is now totally rigid, and we're ready to do some of the roof work. This is an option if you want to make all the angles pretty strong on this thing, double the strength up of the whole greenhouse. Use a Simpson tie A21Z angle bracket. It's a small, very strong angle bracket that's used to keep 2x4s together so that the wind doesn't tear them apart. Or it's also used in, I believe, like earthquake bracing and stuff like that in California. So you can buy these at Home Depot. They're pretty cheap. I think this is 60 cents. Then what you want to use is, you want to use a very thin screw. You want to use a number 6 by 3/4 inch. These happen to be Spax, self-drilling. You need 4 per bracket. Any place you have a 90-degree corner, you can go ahead and place one of the Simpson brackets. Go ahead and screw that in, and you have extra bracing. They could also be used on both sides of the uprights. The Simpson ties could also be used at the base. The Simpson ties can be bent open and used on the upper corner blocks.